Let's read this first story, and I'll just highlight a couple little snippets, and then we'll just dive into this conversation. CNN, of all outlets right now, surprising. They report Southwest border crisis leaves Biden vulnerable on all sides. They say the White House may be loath to call the situation on the southwestern border, which hundreds of migrant children are crossing alone, a crisis, but it's fast becoming a political emergency for the president. We have Fox News reporting that encounters have topped 100,000 in just February as the migrant crisis is spiraling. So here it comes. And, so Alan, you're in Texas.
Yeah.
You're the chairman of the Republican Party. I mean, this is an issue that's very seriously affecting you.
It's incredibly affecting us. And one of the things you have to understand is that Texas is the #1 state in the United States of America for human and sex trafficking. Dallas and Houston are the top 2 cities. So that's an important part when you start to have all of these unaccompanied minors that are being brought in. What happens to them when they're just released into the society? As a matter of fact, they're looking at bringing 3,000 of these illegal immigrants into Dallas to put them at the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center. Then where do they go from there?
These are minors.
These are minors. And so when you understand that atmosphere, when you understand the illegality of drugs to the cross and the drug cartels and how they're getting richer, it comes back to a very simple premise. Why do you break something that is working? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so you had an immigration situation that the Biden administration took over. It was fine. No one's talking about it. Everything is okay. But because you are so owing to the progressive socialist left and they have this open borders agenda, then you make the faux pas of going in and creating a catastrophic situation by executive order. And now you don't have a means by which you're going to take care of it. And the important thing that the Biden administration needs to understand right now, there's no orange man bad.
Yeah.
There's no Donald Trump boogeyman out there for people to look at and have that distraction. Now all that they're doing is saying, we got an issue, we got a crisis. And no, Jen Psaki, you can't circle back to it. You can't say that this is just a challenge. This is affecting people, black, white, Hispanic, Republican, Democrat, independent, libertarian, whatever you want to call it, because you are destabilizing one of the largest states in the United States of America.
Well, something interesting you just mentioned, it was working, right?
Yeah.
The system was working. Well, Pelosi says the Biden administration inherited, quote, a broken system at the border. This is from The Hill on March 14th. So they're already deflecting. And I think, I've covered the migrant crisis throughout the past several years extensively. The number of encounters and migrant children had dropped dramatically.
Incredibly so.
Under Donald Trump.
Yeah. I mean, what we're talking about in the entire last year is what we've already seen in the last 6 weeks. And so This is a crisis situation. And again, they can try this deflection, but the hypocrisy becomes absolutely laughable if it weren't so serious. It's kind of like, the Cuomo Kavanaugh, hypocrisy. But they can't fall back and say, well, this is Trump's fault. I'm sorry. Orange Man is gone.
Literally, Pelosi's trying to do that.
They're trying to resurrect the boogeyman, but it's just not going to work.
Banning him from Twitter sure did backfire on the left because Trump would be tweeting right now.
He's silent.
Yep. Nothing to say.
And you know what? I would say, President Trump, if you're watching me, remember me? I used to be your congressman because Mar-a-Lago was in my district. Oh. Stay silent. Allow them, as Napoleon would say, never interfere with your enemy when they are destroying themselves.
What was this executive order that Biden signed that's screwing with the border right now?
Well, he basically has said one of the things was that there will be no deportations. And our attorney general sued him on that, but he is also,
you guys won, right?
Yeah, we won that. We have a stay on that, so we can continue to deport. But one of the things that he did was he said that this whole thing about you must stay on the southern side of the border in order to be processed for your asylum, that's over now. And so now they understand that they can do the asylum processing in the United States of America, and that's why they're flooding in. And we have gone back to the catch and release system where, everything about this COVID, but yet you had 108 illegal immigrants that tested positive for COVID in Brownsville, Texas, and they were taken to a bus station and they were released. So is the Biden administration serious about COVID? I would think that you would not allow 108 illegal immigrants to just flow right into the state.
There's a lot of hypocrisy.
Tons.
And it's kind of crazy how often we can all bring it up and it doesn't seem to change. But what I do notice is that one of the areas of hypocrisy is the woke critical race theory type people, the progressives. They use the phrase Latinx, something that most Latinos don't recognize or even use. And what's fascinating is the shift in the southern counties in Texas,
Yes.
mainly Latino, went for Trump.
Yes.
Dramatically so.
That was
for
a
Trump.
huge story of the November 2020 election in Texas, and my theory was that kind of like the mentality of paratroopers jump in behind enemy lines. And so why didn't we just go and take our message into the areas where they thought they were strong, into the Rio Grande Valley, and talk about our principles and values, talk about the open borders, talk about illegal immigration, talk about strong families, strong small business entrepreneurship, better education opportunities, not defunding the police, talk about the threats from the drug cartels. And guess what? They're like, yeah. And when you look at the policies of President Trump, where you had record unemployment in the Hispanic community, when you look at the oil and gas industry that was thriving, which meant good paying jobs, black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. Then they said, yeah, we like this direction. Now all of a sudden, this Joe Biden comes in and their communities are being threatened. The drug cartels are being empowered. The illegal immigrants are coming back in, which means a taxing on them and their tax base to provide, additional services. It means a lack of safety and security. So they are alienating further this area that they once thought they completely controlled.
This is a big story of the November election, as you mentioned. Trump winning over more votes from minority communities across the board.
Most in 60 years.
Yeah.
That's something to stress. I mean, when they talk about Donald Trump as a racist, then explain to me how he had the most minority electoral support of any Republican in 60 years at running for president.
And who did he lose? He lost white voters.
Yeah.
And so I wonder who is really buying into this message about immigration. Trump is racist for wanting to, deport illegal immigrants and things like that. Certainly isn't the minority communities that are literally on the borders who are experiencing what happens with unfettered migration.
Or the black communities are going to see their wages being depressed, their job opportunities going to be gone as well. And they saw that they were thriving in the Trump administration. But look at it and think about it this way. The suburban white woman that was told, again, orange man bad, he's a nasty person, he doesn't like women, his tweets are horrible. Now all of a sudden the suburban soccer mom has to ask herself, why is this 6'2", gender dysphoric, biological male going to be on the soccer field with my daughter? That's not what they voted for.
Well, they should have paid attention to what they were voting for.
But again, now that's why it comes back to that poll that you just talked about, how a lot of people don't see Joe Biden as being capable of being the president, and all of these things that he is implementing by way of the leftist agenda. And it's going to be the same thing for young people. I mean, I think that with President Trump, you had a cultural president connected with young people. He was a little rough and whatever, but that's something that you get with a New Yorker. But now you have someone that, if you think that free equals freedom, you're horribly wrong.
Yeah. One of the main issues that seems to have been lost on the left is the economics of mass migration and illegal immigration that even Bernie Sanders was criticizing back in 2015. Here's this guy, he's the champion of the left and the progressives, and in 2015 he said open borders is a Koch brothers proposal. He was basically saying these big billionaire industrialists want cheap labor with no rights, that they can get in there for below minimum wage, and they need these policies in order to do it. And there were big scandals. I remember I watched a documentary where some of these companies would bring in illegal immigrant labor, promise them a bunch of money, and at the end of the month just call immigration and have them all deported. And they were exploiting these loopholes. They wanted that porous border for this purpose. But that means these factories were actually taking away good paying jobs for low skilled labor in these areas for working class Americans.
You're absolutely right. And that's why you see the U.S. Chamber of Commerce that is all about, the open borders and the illegal immigration. That's why you see a lot of these big businesses and corporations don't want E-Verify.
What is E-Verify?
E-Verify is the system by which people are registered and you can track individuals. They don't want that. And so you have some partisanship on either side with this issue. One, people want to bring in a new victim class. They want a new voter base. The other side wants to have a cheap labor base. But in the end, who is getting squeezed and who's going to be the most affected? Your middle to lower income levels, blacks and Hispanics, are going to be the ones that suffer with the scourge of illegal immigration.
Man, I liked what you said about free does not mean freedom, because we built a system of law and rule that has enabled us to be free, to experience freedom in our system. Like, you have to abide by a strict rule of law so that you don't get jumped when you're walking down the street, and you can feel free outside. Just dispensing with the rules in this anarchic free society does not lead to freedom as we understand it.
No, it doesn't. And when you think about what was going on, I mean, you grew up in Chicago, and I remember seeing the riots that were happening in Chicago with these Black Lives Matter social justice warriors, and they were going in and busting up all of those stores on the Million Mile, Magnificent Mile. And what were they saying? This is how we're going to get our reparations.
That a woman is actually quoted as saying that she didn't care when asked about the riot. She said, "This is reparations as far as she's concerned." There's a video of a guy firing a gun into the window of one of these shops trying to steal luxury merchandise. Look, I'm not a big fan of like luxury brands. I think it's, can be a bit pompous, but I think it's fine people have that stuff. I don't think someone should go and shoot guns and steal it because they think they're owed something.
No.
But it was defended in the media.
And that's the sad thing. And that's the breakdown of the rule of law and order. Remember that, when John Locke wrote his second treatise of government, and he talked about this thing, that was completely different. It was natural rights theory that was different from divine rights theory. And John Locke came out and said that there are three inalienable rights that we have from our Creator. It's life, liberty, and property. And what do you see happening with the left? All you got to do is go to the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx. It is about taking away that individual right to property. And that is what you see happening in America now. It's a wealth redistribution scheme that says, I don't care how much you work hard, Tim. I don't care how successful your podcast is. I don't care how well you're doing here, Ian. It is our right as the government to come in and take it away from you and redistribute it to someone else. That ain't freedom.
I had a good conversation with a socialist. I think it was the Socialist Party of Great Britain or something. And they basically said, when I brought up that point about property, they said, no, you don't understand. In socialism, you're allowed personal property. It's very different from private
like
property.
A watch?
Right. So when they said they're banning private property, I'm like, so what, I can't have clothes? And they're like, no, that's personal property. Private property is like a building. And I'm like, okay, so let's try and find that line of where you split personal property from private property. They were trying to explain that private property in their system means the means of production, the factory for producing things.
Nationalizing production.
Well, so here's the question I had. Okay, well, I do my work by filming myself with a camera. The camera is my means of production, my factory essentially. Should that camera be owned by someone else, or should it be my personal property? Didn't really have a good answer for it, because it's a weasel word excuse for some justification for seizing people's private property.
Absolutely.
Personal property is meaningless. Your shoes, okay, but what about my car? What about my bike? What about my food, my refrigerator, my home? Where do you draw the line? And they said ultimately, well, we don't necessarily know. Of course you don't know. Your system is magic. It doesn't make sense.
And it's broke. It has never been successful. And so let's take that philosophy and let's overplan it to the last year dealing with this COVID issue. Show me in the Constitution where any elected official has the enumerated power to decide who or what is essential in the United States of America.
They've done it.
Show me in the Constitution, coming back to your statement about the rule of law and freedom, show me in the Constitution where it says that any elected official, politician, can come to you and say, shut down your business, shut down your livelihood, but yet I will continue to be paid.
Isn't the 14th Amendment barring them from doing that? That people must be treated equally
equal protection under the law.
Yeah,
absolutely. But see, when you have the ability to redefine the law or fundamentally transform the law and say that, well, we don't really know what it is, but we're kind of deciding as we go along. And if we continue to have, and let me say this correctly, when we morph from being people to being sheeple, we are allowing ourselves to be fear-mongered and intimidated into surrendering our everyday liberties and rights. Remember what Benjamin Franklin said: those who would surrender essential liberty for temporary security will in the end deserve neither liberty nor security.
And lose both.
They won't deserve either. So that's what we're talking about when we say free does not equal freedom. If you want something to give you something for free, you're surrendering your freedom to that person.
Let me ask you, you bring up the Constitution and elected officials have a right to tell you have to close your business. My response is, I think the 14th Amendment says equal protection under the law.
Yeah.
Do you think that's fair to say that these politicians, these states are by chance violating the Constitution of the United States?
Absolutely they are. And as a matter of fact, you have had several state Supreme Courts that have come back and said, hey, what our governors did with these mandates, edicts, orders, and decrees were unconstitutional. We are a constitutional republic. That means we are governed by a rule of law. We are not a constitutional monarchy where someone sits up like Ramses Pharaoh and says, so let it be written, so let it be done, and we're supposed to all fall down like subjects. We're citizens. And I think that's what's so important. If there's one message I can get to the young people, you've got to understand the structure of this government. You've got to understand the roles and responsibilities of the respective branches. You got to understand your rights.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.